The life of a typical college student unfolds like a glossy brochure. Picturesque campus, hopeful freshmen, and the ever-swirling breeze of youthful dreams and potential romance. Meanwhile, Choi Chang-wook, a second-year returnee, trudges through it all with the enthusiasm of a man reading his own obituary. He firmly believes he's miles away from that picture-perfect campus life, mostly because he belongs to the engineering school, a place where individuality dies and everyone dresses like they've been copy-pasted from a tech startup's worst-dressed list. The air smells like burnt coffee and existential crisis, with a generous helping of cigarette smoke. Friendships here are more myth than reality. Personalities clash, interests diverge, and group chats die faster than group projects begin. As for the curriculum, it's a battlefield of impossible equations and soul-crushing lectures. Throw in the fact that the gender ratio is an awkward sausage fest, and it's not hard to see why Chang-wook feels like a monk trapped in a computer lab. He comes from an all-boys middle and high school background, a streak of estrogen-free education that continues right into college. After returning from military service instead of a fresh start, he lands back into this monochrome world. At this point, he's pretty sure the only women he'll ever interact with are the ones printed on his shampoo bottles. At the lecture hall, for general education, also known as the only building where the presence of females has been confirmed, Chang-wook sits alone, wearing a permanent frown like it's part of his uniform. Just a few rows down, a flock of eager guys trip over their words, offering their undying loyalty to one particular girl, promising to handle every speck of her research so she doesn't lift a delicate academic finger. The girl in question is Ciola, aka the department's goddess. The first time Chang-wook got grouped with her on a project, he almost thought fate was finally cutting him some slack. That was 2 weeks ago. Alongside Ciola was another female junior, Hyune, and things looked promising. Ciola, with a dazzling smile that could melt stress fractures, suggested Chang-wook be the group leader. His excitement lasted precisely 5 seconds. By week 2, reality hits harder than an overdue assignment. Ciola effortlessly assigns herself the easiest task and proceeds to ghost the group with the professionalism of a seasoned magician. Every time there's work to do, she conjures up another excuse. Everything Ciola conveniently skips doing ends up in the hands of her loyal legion of fanboys who currently buzz around her like interns around free pizza. Meanwhile, Chang-wook sits back, silently judging the absurdity of it all. 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks, and Ciola hasn't so much as lifted a metaphorical finger. In stark contrast, Hyune, the quieter member of their trio, not only does her part but wraps it up with neat formatting and footnotes that don't look like they were written during a caffeine-induced panic attack. When Chang-wook reviews Hyune's report, he's genuinely impressed. It's well-researched, clear, and actually useful, a rare miracle in group projects. He tells her it's really good, and Hyune gives him a timid thank you, barely audible, over the sound of Ciola's entourage offering to carry her laptop, her bag, and possibly her will to study. Hyune's shy and slightly nerdy demeanor makes the lack of attention from the others feel even more glaring. No one even spares her a glance. They're too busy orbiting planet Ciola. Feeling like the last voice of reason in a world gone mad, Chang-wook finally reminds Ciola to complete her share before their next class. She gives him a smile that promises nothing, and he braces himself for disappointment. Class proceeds, and as it wraps up, the lecturer announces that group leaders need to submit their presentation topics to the TAs before leaving. Chang-wook makes his way over and hands in the paperwork to a blonde TA. She looks up, blinks a few times, then removes her cap and glasses with a flare straight out of a K-drama reveal. Apparently, this is supposed to jog his memory. It works. Vaguely. He recognizes her as someone who once tried to strike up a conversation, mentioning they were in the same year. Her name comes back to him. Hyune. He blurts out that he didn't expect her to be a TA. She fires back that she's even more shocked to see him in a first-year class. He shrugs and admits it's because his grades took a nosedive. Just then, a group of junior guys pass by and greet Hyune with synchronized nods and voices loud enough to echo. She returns the greetings like a celebrity on a red carpet. Before their conversation can continue, another batch of students passes, offering more greetings. Chang-wook stares, trying to figure out when their school became a boot camp. Then it clicks. Of course people flock to Hyune. She's approachable, chill, and has that easygoing vibe. Yumin casually mentions that she noticed Chang-wook is grouped with Ciola, adding with a smirk that he looks like someone about to step on a landmine. Chang-wook blinks, unsure what she means, but part of him senses it's probably not a compliment. It doesn't take long before enlightenment hits. Later that night, Ciola drops a message in the group chat claiming she can't do her report because her computer suddenly decided to die, probably from overexposure to her avoidance. As expected, the Guy Brigade springs into action, falling over themselves to offer technical support, emotional support, and possibly moral support for her fictional laptop. By the next class, the reality of Yumin's words comes crashing down. Ciola struts in, not only alive and well, but with her personal assignments perfectly printed and neatly stapled. Meanwhile, the guys, sleep-deprived and dark-eyed, have clearly sacrificed their night to finish the very report she bailed on. At the lecture center, the scene unfolds like a live reenactment of a tragicomedy. The guys swarm around Ciola, cooing that she doesn't need to worry because they handled everything for her. Ciola flashes them a dazzling smile like a benevolent queen receiving offerings. Chang-wook, standing nearby, frowns so hard it might become permanent. Hyune, sharp-eyed despite her shy nature, notices his expression and stiffens. Chang-wook, finally done with the circus, calls out Ciola. He reminds her, bluntly, that because she didn't do her part, the rest had to pick up the slack. And here she is, turning in her own homework while acting like she's too fragile to lift a pen. For the group. He points out that had she simply completed her report, they could have moved on to making the PowerPoint and actually started preparing their presentation. Instead, she's done nothing, and he declares that if this continues, he'll have to remove her name from the project. Ciola looks like she's been struck by lightning. And then, classic plot twist, she starts crying, loudly, tearfully declaring that she wants to do her part, and if Chang-wook really wants to take her name off, then so be it. The room shifts instantly. The guys, now seeing Chang-wook as the villain of the story, start scolding him as if he just kicked a puppy on campus. Trying to salvage both his dignity and the project timeline, Chang-wook proposes a final deadline. The presentation is in 2 classes. If Ciola doesn't finish her part by the weekend, then her name comes off for real. Surprisingly, Ciola stops, crying immediately and chirps that she'll definitely do it, complete with sparkles in her eyes. Chang-wook, mildly alarmed by how fast the switch flipped, decides to let her off this time. By Saturday evening, just when the tension in Chang-wook's chest begins to ease slightly, a message flashes in the group chat. It's from Ciola. She writes that her grandfather has passed away and that she won't be able to work on her portion of the report. The moment his eyes land on the message, something inside him twists. His jaw tightens and his fingers hover above the screen, tempted to type out every single thought boiling in his head. But he stops himself. He knows the script. Say anything, now, and he's the heartless one, the guy who doesn't respect grief. So instead, he slumps back onto his bed, the weight of helplessness pressing hard against his chest. Frustration sits with him like an uninvited guest, growing louder by the second. The room feels smaller, the air is heavier. And just when it seems like the night will end in angry silence, his phone buzzes again. Min-tae's name lights up the screen. An old friend from high school, the kind who believes life's disasters can be drowned in cold beer. The offer for a drink hangs on the screen. At first, Chang-wook thinks about saying no. There's still the project, still the deadline, still the mess. But then her name floats back into his head. That report, that excuse, that message. His chest burns a little, and before he even knows it, his thumbs are typing out a yes. The night air hits him like a sigh of relief as he steps out. He meets up with Min-tae, and the two begin wandering the streets, footsteps light and conversation. Easy? Somewhere along the way, Min-tae suggests another round of drinks. They head down a street lined with glowing signs until they come to a quieter place with dim lights and a warm atmosphere. It looks less like a bar and more like a secret escape. As they step inside, a lady greets them with a practiced smile. The bar is softly lit, filled with young women dressed neatly, many of them seated beside men who look far too relaxed for the problems they probably carry. Min-tae casually informs him it's a talking bar, one of those places where the drinks are optional, but the conversation is part of the package. The staff takes a glance at the two of them, college stress written all over their faces, and gently suggests that there are female students available, offering to send some over. Just then, a girl sitting at the far end of the bar catches their attention. Surrounded by older men, she carries herself with ease, a practiced charm in every gesture. The staff mentions that the girl is very popular, a favorite among the regulars. And then, the moment spins. The girl turns her head, and it's Ciola. Everything pauses. Changwook's breath catches in his throat. Across the room, her eyes widen, and she sits frozen as if her world also just tilted sideways. There's no mistaking the look of someone caught completely off guard. And all at once, the message about her grandfather's passing feels like a slap from a ghost that never existed. The funeral, the mourning, the excuse. It all collapses under the bright, ironic lights of the bar. Ciola approaches the table where Changwook and Min-tae are seated. Her usual smile is in place, but her eyes flicker with something uncertain as she sets the drinks down. She quickly notices that Changwook hasn't spoken a word since they sat down. He just keeps sipping from his glass, one after the other, like each drink is helping him swallow the anger he doesn't know what to do with. There's a tension around him that doesn't match the relaxed hum of the bar. Her gaze lingers, suspicious, and a little uneasy as she tries to read what's going on in his head. Meanwhile, Changwook is stuck in a whirlwind of thoughts. He doesn't touch the bar snacks, doesn't make conversation, doesn't even register half of what Min-tae says. All he can think about is Ciola. The gall of her sitting across the room hours after texting the group about her grandfather's funeral.
His mind spins with frustration, ideas, and possible confrontations. But in the middle of all that storm, he doesn't realize how many drinks he's downed until his phone buzzes. It's a call from home. Something about the familiar ringtone brings him back to earth. Changwook mumbles to Min-tae that he's going to step outside to take the call and clear his head a bit. He drags himself toward the restroom, hoping to splash some water on his face and gather his thoughts before doing something stupid. But the moment he steps inside, things take a sharp turn. A hand grabs the collar of his shirt and yanks him inside one of the toilet stalls. The door slams shut behind him, and before he can fully process what's happening, he finds himself staring at Ciola in close quarters, her expression tense and frantic. She wastes no time. She demands to know if he's told anyone what he saw tonight. The irritation flickers back into Changwook's eyes. Her voice may be low, but the desperation in it only fuels his annoyance. He snaps back, pointing out the ridiculousness of it all. How the supposedly innocent, sweet-faced engineering student is actually moonlighting at a talking bar. Her image, all polished and perfect, now cracked wide open. Ciola immediately tries to shift the mood. She backpedals, offering him a meal if he keeps quiet. A weak bribe. It only makes things worse. Changwook isn't playing along. He calls her out again, sharper this time. She counters by offering to finally do her part of the research. But that only makes him laugh dryly, shaking his head in disbelief. The presentation is in less than 2 days, and everyone else has already finished the part she left undone. Ciola's voice softens. She starts explaining that she has her reasons, eyes wide, trying to appear vulnerable. But Changwook doesn't budge. His frustration boils over as he throws her excuses back in her face. She cried when she was cornered. She gave excuses when she was supposed to take responsibility. He was stupid enough to expect even the bare minimum, a simple apology. Meanwhile, the rest of their team is staying up all night, pulling her weight while still worrying about her. And here she is, hiding behind false tears, protecting her own image. Ciola yells back, her voice suddenly sharp, claiming he's the worst for pressuring an underclassman just for missing a bit of work. But the fire in her tone dims quickly, replaced by fear. She pleads again, voice trembling now. If word about her job gets out, she says, she won't be able to show her face at school again. They eventually reach a quiet agreement inside the cramped restroom stall. Ciola promises to handle her part of the group work properly from now on, while Changwook agrees to keep her secret tightly locked away. Come Monday, the group is gathered at a cozy cafe they frequent for their weekly meeting. The low hum of coffee machines and the scent of roasted beans fill the air. Changwook sits across from Ciola and the other members, idly stirring his iced Americano while watching the scene unfold. The guys, as always, are quick to notice Sila's presence, and even quicker to praise her. They're genuinely surprised, almost as if they've spotted a unicorn, that she not only showed up but also submitted her part of the work on time. Chang-wook leans back in his chair, observing quietly. For once, Sila is early, engaged, and acting like a model student. He doesn't need a magic ball to figure out why. Her attendance and sudden diligence are less about group spirit and more about damage control. It's all written plainly on her face. She wants to protect her secret, and that means keeping him happy. He compliments her lightly, saying it's good she turned in her work, but then flips the script. His tone stays calm, but his words cut a little. There are plenty of mistakes in her report, and she needs to align her section with the others and make sure everything fits by tomorrow. The guys glance at each other, unease creeping in. They know Sila has a habit of vanishing when things get demanding. As expected, Sila plays her usual card, tilting her head and speaking with a pitiful voice, acting as if the deadline is just too much. She pouts slightly, adding a touch of drama, wondering aloud how she'll get everything done in such little time. But Chang-wook isn't buying it. He gives her a look, not harsh, but unmistakably pointed, like a silent nudge that says she knows why you need to do this. Sila picks up on the message immediately. Her demeanor shifts. She straightens up, clutches her arms for a bit of theatrical emphasis, and assures everyone she'll do it. The sudden switch in attitude makes the other members blink in confusion. One moment she's whining, the next she's determined. The performance is almost too quick. Chang-wook then turns his attention to Hyune's part of the project. He schemes through it and nods, clearly impressed. He says it looks perfect and casually adds that Hyune seems far more reliable than someone else. The indirect jab hangs in the air like a low buzz. Sila, catching every word, looks visibly tense. She knows it's not just a comparison. It's a warning. She clenches her hands a little under the table, likely thinking to herself that she just needs to push through, work harder, and keep her mouth shut if she wants her secret life to remain buried. The boys, still not in on the hidden tension, exchange glances. Something seems off. They can't help but wonder why Sila, normally so free-spirited, is suddenly listening to everything Chang-wook says like he's the group leader or worse, her parole officer. Unbeknownst to them all, someone else is listening too. A few tables behind them, Hyune sits with her drink, quietly observing the group. Her eyes flick toward Sila and then toward Chang-wook, the faintest hint of curiosity playing on her face. On campus, Chang-wook leans against a wall, a cigarette dangling from his fingers, his thoughts lingering on the difficulty of the class. The air is chilly, and the silence of the evening surrounds him. Just as he exhales a plume of smoke, he notices Hyune approaching. She remarks on the curious change in Sila's behavior, a topic that catches his attention more than he expects. Hyune's casual observation about the girls' rankings at school, a strange hierarchy defined not by looks or year, but by the status of their boyfriends, makes him pause. He listens intently as she explains Sila's position in this system, describing how older boys fawned over her from the moment she arrived, turning her into the goddess of the school. It seems that Sila has never really needed to pull her weight in group work. Her reputation and flirtations were enough to keep her ahead. Hyune's curiosity about Chang-wook's ability to make Sila so obedient only deepens as she talks. Chang-wook can't bring himself to mention the bar. Too much of a risk. But he offers a half-hearted explanation, suggesting it was his manliness that did the trick. Hyune bursts into laughter at his response, clearly not buying it. They move on to talk about Mincheol, who set up a fried chicken shop near the school. The conversation shifts from there, as Chang-wook grows increasingly aware of the strange, layered dynamics surrounding his classmates. After a brief exchange, Chang-wook says he needs to head out and work on his project. Before he leaves, Hyune remarks how nice it is to see an old, dependable classmate around. Someone who doesn't quite blend in with the crowd, but still feels familiar. Her words hang in the air as Chang-wook walks away, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of his lips, though it's unclear whether it's for her or just his own fleeting thoughts. Later, in the classroom, Chang-wook finds himself reflecting on the stark contrast between him and Yumin. While he has been skimming by, Yumin has been diligently studying. It's a small but significant realization. He wonders if she's depending on him now, whether his role here is truly something more than just being another face in the crowd. His phone buzzes, pulling him out of his thoughts. It's late, and with that reminder, he decides to leave. Stepping outside, he shivers as the cold air hits him. The campus is eerily quiet, the kind of stillness that feels both unsettling and peaceful. As he walks down the empty street, he catches a glimpse of Yumin passing by. For a brief moment, the thought of teasing her crosses his mind, maybe even giving her a small scare. But that thought quickly fades as something more practical takes over. He watches her walking alone, and the unease creeps up. It feels dangerous, the silence of the night and the empty streets, especially for someone walking by themselves. Without thinking much further, he decides to follow her, his steps quiet against the cold pavement, unsure of what exactly he's hoping to find. Chang-wook notices a couple of students walking toward him, and realizing the awkwardness of the moment, he quickly excuses himself and heads home. Once there, he starts searching frantically for his wallet, turning over every surface and rummaging through drawers. He even goes back to school to check the lecture room, but his wallet is nowhere to be found. As he searches, a thought crosses his mind. Maybe Yumin has taken it. After all, she's the last person he saw before losing it. A few days pass, and Yumin never calls him. He figures maybe she didn't even drop the wallet where she was.
Then one day, he sees her walking by, and to his surprise, 3 guys come up to greet her. She firmly tells them to stop, making it clear she isn't their friend. As she looks around, she glances over in his direction, claiming she thinks she's spotted someone she knows. Chang-wook, who has been hiding behind the guys like a ninja in plain sight, feels a bit embarrassed. Even though he hasn't gotten his wallet back, the thought of meeting her still makes him uncomfortable, and so he stays hidden, hoping she doesn't notice him. However, Ciola spots him, and she wastes no time rushing over to him, calling out his name. Chang-wook is so lost in his thoughts that he doesn't notice her at first. She has to raise her voice and grab his hand to snap him out of it. At that moment, some students see them and wonder who Ciola is talking to. Ciola asks if he has checked his email about the assignment, to which Chang-wook replies he hasn't because he's been busy. Ciola, a little sassy as always, reminds him that it's actually he who told her to hurry up and get it done. In return, Chang-wook teases her, pretending he's about to reveal one of her secrets. This makes Ciola absolutely livid, and she slams her hand on the door, shouting that she clearly remembers paying the price, so he should just stop with the teasing. The students around them start whispering, watching the scene unfold. Great, now they're definitely the center of attention. After the little outburst, Ciola hurries off, telling Chang-wook to check his email when he has the time. Chang-wook, noticing the growing chatter around him, quickly makes his exit, feeling like he needs to escape before things get any more awkward. However, he's later seen being bombarded by other members of the group, who ask him how he got so close to Ciola, and even convinced her to do the assignment. Chang-wook feels a little uneasy under the sudden scrutiny, but tries to shrug it off, though it's clear he's not entirely comfortable with the attention. Guess they're not used to seeing him like this. Later, after class, Chang-wook is spotted by Yumin, who remarks that they haven't seen each other for a while. Chang-wook, feeling awkward and caught off guard, immediately decides it's time to take his leave. He claims he has work to do, hoping to make a quick exit. To his surprise, Yumin returns his wallet, and he pretends to be confused, asking how it ended up with her. Yumin is at Chang-wook's place, teasing him about how they're now partners in being exhibitionists. Chang-wook, clearly not enjoying the joke, snaps at her, telling her to stop doing that because it's too dangerous. Yumin, unfazed, asks if he knows why she's been acting that way on campus. She explains that it's hard to believe, but she went to an all-girls school, so she never really had a chance to talk to boys. When she came to the engineering school, she heard the rumors about how it was mostly filled with men. At first, it was unfamiliar, but she quickly found it fun. Talk about a dramatic change of scenery. Suddenly, Yumin realizes that they're going to be late for class, and they both rush out the door. No time for more deep conversation, just the chaos of student life. A few days later, Chang-wook walks through campus, reflecting on how things have returned to normal after some incidents. The team project he and Ciola had clashed over ended successfully. Now, without any reason to interact, Ciola has become just an existence out of his reach once again. He's back to his loner life, or so he thinks. But then, out of nowhere, he's smacked on the back. Turning around, he sees Hyune greeting him, and they continue their walk together. Changwook notices that her style seems to have changed, and he asks her if she's not feeling cold. Hyune, ever playful, jabs at him and asks if he's worried about her. He wants to say something, but before he can get the words out, she punches him to make him stop. Guess she's got a way of keeping him on his toes. Changwook notices the guys around them sneaking glances in their direction, and he starts to feel awkward. Realizing that walking with a pretty girl draws attention, he starts to think it's best to get away quickly. He comes up with an excuse about having a class and decides to run off. He feels it's probably better for both of them if they avoid any strange rumors that might start. Yeah, being seen with a girl like that could definitely lead to some wild speculation. To his surprise, Hyune starts running with him. She casually explains that the professor is always late, so it's fine for her to skip out of her own way. For a bit, Changwook tells her she doesn't need to follow him, but she doesn't seem to mind. She's already set on sticking with him. Classic Hyune, making her own rules. Meanwhile, the guys nearby start discussing whether Hyune and Changwook are actually that close. One of them can't help but wonder if they might be dating, but the others quickly dismiss the idea, saying it's not possible. Around the same time, Ciola is spotted with the group. As usual, she catches their attention, and they all admire her from a distance. Seems like Ciola is always the center of attention. Later, as the evening rolls in, Changwook finds himself in the lecture room, realizing that a lot of time has passed. He figures it's probably time to start packing up. Just as he's about to gather his things, he hears someone enter. He turns to find that it's Ciola. She claims she's here to work on her assignment, casually telling him to mind his own business. Yet, instead of sitting at another seat, she proceeds to sit right beside him. Changwook finds it a bit weird, especially given how she always acts like she's in charge of everything around her. Well, this is going to be an interesting evening. Changwook and Ciola are both seen working on their computers in the lecture room. Changwook, however, seems to be struggling to concentrate. He starts wondering if it's better for him to just leave. He gets up from his seat, preparing to walk out, but Ciola stops him, handing him a canned drink. She asks if they can talk for a moment. Ciola casually mentions that he seems to be doing well these days, having fun with a woman and all. Changwook wonders if she's talking about Hyune. She then says that she's been worried every day, fearing he might tell someone about her. Changwook, slightly irritated, reminds her that he's already promised to keep her secret. He asks her to wait a moment as he types something on his phone. Ciola appears visibly nervous, which doesn't go unnoticed by him. He reassures her, telling her that he's not going to tell anyone, so she doesn't have to worry. Ciola admits that it's exactly that. Every little thing he does makes her nervous. Changwook, trying to lighten the situation, asks her if she can't just quit the job, considering he doesn't have any proof anyway. Ciola responds that she'll quit after next month. He then asks her why she keeps bothering him, to which she replies that she doesn't trust him. Changwook, now growing annoyed, retorts that maybe he should just meet her expectations and write it on a poster. He's about to leave the lecture room, fed up with the situation. But then, he hears Ciola say that she'll do it one more time, and properly this time. It's like a never-ending loop, and Changwook wonders if he'll ever get a break from all this drama. Hyune walks into the lecture room and approaches Changwook, seeking his advice on how to be more social and learn from him. She admits that it's a difficult challenge for her, and she's feeling a bit lost. She observes that Changwook seems to get along with everyone and is quite popular, which surprises him since he doesn't see himself that way. But Hyune insists, mentioning that she's shy and introverted, and that even though there aren't many girls in the engineering school, she thought they would form a bond. Unfortunately, she finds that the girls mostly keep to themselves, playing solo. She goes on to talk about how pretty girls like Ciola seem to have an easy time hanging out with boys, even if they don't interact much with other girls. But when it comes to Changwook, she notices something different. Ciola, despite her usual aloofness, becomes more candid and comfortable around him, and the boys seem to talk about Changwook a lot. Hyune even notices how Changwook and Hyune appear to have a close friendship. Hyune expresses her desire to get along with people like Chang-wook or Ciola, wishing she could be more like them. However, Chang-wook, unable to stop his internal laughter, realizes that Hyune has a completely wrong impression of him as a popular, outgoing person. He tries to explain that he's not really the best person to give advice on this matter, but Hyune insists that he is always kind, even to someone like her, to which Chang-wook reassures her that there's nothing wrong with her. He adds that women can look different depending on how they style themselves, and that Hyune is hiding her own beauty. She's pretty enough, he tells her, even though she doesn't realize it. Grateful for his words, Hyune thanks him for his help with the team project and prepares to leave. But just as she's about to walk out, she suddenly returns to the room, only to find Ciola and Chang-wook together. Talk about a plot twist. Ciola nearly dies from the ridiculous situation she finds herself in. Just as she's about to breathe a sigh of relief, she hears footsteps approaching the door. In an instant, Hyune walks in, catching both of them off guard. Ciola and Chang-wook freeze, stunned to be caught. Hyune, seemingly surprised to see Ciola in the room, claims she forgot something. Her eyes flicker between them, clearly confused. Before she can finish her sentence, Ciola quickly denies any suspicions, insisting she's just here to work on her assignments. Chang-wook's heart skips a beat. He silently prays that Hyune won't notice Ciola's lack of clothes, because if she does, well, he'd have some serious explaining to do. He lets out a relieved sigh when he sees that Ciola is dressed. He immediately shoots Hyune a sharp response, trying to hide his nervousness. Hyune, still looking bewildered, tells Ciola that she didn't notice her when she first entered. Ciola, at first unsure of how to respond, quickly covers her tracks, casually mentioning that she was just hiding. She then smartly adds that she didn't want to be seen with someone like him at this hour. It could lead to some unwanted rumors. She playfully hints at how embarrassing it would be if anyone got the wrong idea. Chang-wook, still shaking from the close call, internally commends Ciola for her quick thinking, but deep down, he can't ignore the nagging thought. Did she really feel that way about him? He jokes to himself that if it's true, it would sting, but he'll live. As his mind races, he's even more puzzled when Hyune, of all people, defends him. Hyune grows visibly upset as she faces Ciola, her voice sharp and filled with emotion. She finds the words Ciola used, someone like him, and embarrassing, to be far too cruel. The weight of those phrases lingers in the air like a slap, and Hyune doesn't bother to hide how hurtful she finds them. Ciola freezes in place, caught completely off guard. She never expects Hyune to snap at her like that, and for a moment, she doesn't even know how to respond. Frustration bubbles up as her thoughts scramble for an exit, and she finally mutters that she has things to do. Without waiting for a response, she waves them off and hurries out of the room, the sound of her footsteps echoing down the hallway. Hyune stands there in shock, her brows furrowed in confusion. She calls after Ciola, stepping toward the door, but by the time she looks out, Ciola has already disappeared. Still puzzled, she turns toward Chang-wook, only to let out a loud, startled scream as her hand flies up to cover her eyes. Chang-wook, deep in his thoughts about how cleverly Ciola had deflected suspicion just moments earlier, is completely caught off guard. He turns slowly toward Hyune, unsure why she's reacting so dramatically, until he glances down and finally realizes the tragic state he's in. In the chaos of the moment, he has forgotten something very basic, like pants. Panic floods his system as he turns around in a blur and fumbles to cover himself, his voice rushed and apologetic as he tries to explain the absurd situation. His dignity makes a quick dash for the window as he mentally accepts defeat. Inside, he already starts mourning the loss of his reputation. The next morning, Ciola strolls across campus, her expression calm but her thoughts anything but. Students greet her as she passes, especially the boys who seem to find 1,000 reasons to notice her today. She returns the greetings with a light nod, but her mind wanders back to the night before. The memory of Hyune's outburst still lingers. The way she stood up for Chang-wook felt intense. Ciola begins to wonder if Hyune harbors feelings for him, and the thought unsettles her more than she expects. Still, she tells herself that Chang-wook doesn't seem like the type to get involved in anything meaningful. To her, he's just a returning student with a questionable sense of timing, and possibly a permanent allergy to shirts. Chang-wook lets out a heavy sigh as he walks across campus, the memory of last night playing on a loop in his mind. He still can't shake the image of Hyune walking in on him without pants, an experience now permanently etched into the hall of his most embarrassing moments. Deep down, he's grateful that she seemed to believe Ciola's excuse and didn't ask too many questions. But the more he thinks about it, the more convinced he becomes that she probably sees him as a textbook campus pervert now. The thought makes him groan out loud without realizing, startling a couple of students nearby who glance at him like he's lost in a tragic drama. And honestly, he kind of is. Just as he's dragging himself toward class, he hears someone call his name. He flinches slightly, on edge, only to turn and see Ciola approaching. His shoulders relax a bit as he lets out a small sigh of relief, quietly muttering under his breath like he's just dodged a bullet. Ciola, however, narrows her eyes at his odd expression. She can't tell if he's relieved, nervous, or just malfunctioning. She keeps her voice casual as she asks if nothing happened yesterday, her way of reminding him, with the subtlety of a brick, to keep his mouth shut about her being in his room. Chang-wook nods slowly, offering a vague, "I guess," that sounds more like he's trying to convince himself than anyone else. As they walk side by side for a few steps, something clicks in his memory, and he stops abruptly. He turns back to her, looking like he just remembered he left the stove on, and tells her he has something for her. Ciola raises an eyebrow, suddenly curious, and asks if he's sure it's meant for her. With zero dramatic buildup and a complete lack of self-preservation, Chang-wook pulls out her bra and singlet from his bag like he's showing off a new phone case. Ciola stares in frozen horror, the color draining from her face. At that exact moment, Hyune, who happens to be nearby, turns and sees the tragic performance unfolding live. Her eyes widen, her mouth drops open, and she marches straight toward him, smacking his back like she's trying to knock some sense into it. Her voice is sharp as she scolds him, completely mortified that he would whip out someone's undergarments in broad daylight like it's a group project. People around them start to take notice, especially a few engineering department students and former teammates of Chang-wook's, who begin whispering as they take in the scene. Their former project teammates stand nearby, watching Chang-wook and Ciola interact with puzzled expressions. The closeness between the two makes little sense to them. Back during their group assignment, they had always been the ones going easy on Ciola, helping her whenever she claimed to be sick or came up with excuses not to do her part. They had picked up the slack without complaint and never expected anything in return. One of them reminds the others that Chang-wook, Ciola, and he were in the same team for that assignment. But another teammate frowns, pointing out that Chang-wook used to be the harshest on Ciola. He had told her off the most. That's what makes it so strange. Why would she get close to someone like that? Off to the side, Min-soo, who wasn't even part of the original team, jumps into the conversation. He recalls how kind everyone had been to Ciola during the project. They helped her a lot, he says, but the others quickly shut him down, reminding him he wasn't actually in the group, so his opinion doesn't count. As they speak, the group's attention shifts once more. Yumin appears nearby, her presence pulling eyes toward her. She looks even prettier than usual, so much so that one of the guys quietly mutters that she's the only girl he ever dreams about. But even his admiration doesn't distract them from returning to the usual topic, complaining about Chang-wook. They mock him, wondering why every beautiful girl in engineering seems to be drawn to him. Yumin, with her usual sharp expression, walks straight toward Chang-wook. Her steps are fast, her gaze fixed. She asks why he ignored her message the day before, clearly annoyed. But Chang-wook, confused, acts like he never even saw the message. The boys nearby exchange glances, more confused and irritated. Just moments ago, Ciola had walked off quietly. Now Yumin is here, clearly angry but still giving Chang-wook direct attention. Yumin's tone softens slightly as she asks how he managed to make Ciola behave so differently around him. She seems cuter with him, she notes. Chang-wook doesn't know what to say. He thinks about it for a second. Maybe it's all the weird, awkward situations they've been in together. Maybe those moments changed something. Still, he isn't sure. He wonders if bizarre circumstances really lead to real feelings. Days pass. Ciola doesn't say anything to him. No messages, no small talk. Her silence starts to bother him. 1. Morning while heading across campus, he overhears two students chatting. One asks the other if he knows someone named Room from the school community page. The name sounds unfamiliar to Chang-wook, but something makes him stop and listen. The boy explains that Room is a secret account that posts nude pictures every night. His friend is stunned, asking if the photos are actually of her body. The boy confirms, saying the woman has a stunning figure. He adds that the photos often seem to be taken around the engineering department, which makes them think the account owner might be one of their classmates. Hearing this, Chang-wook pulls out his phone and searches for the account. The latest photo is still up. As he stares at it, a strange feeling creeps up his spine. He shakes his head quickly. There's no way someone like that is from his department. Then a voice calls from behind. It's Yumin. And in that moment, Chang-wook's certainty begins to waver. As Yumin walks through the hallway, her pace slows when she hears her name called out. It's Chang-wook, which catches her off guard. He rarely approaches her first. With a curious look, she asks, "What's going on?" wondering what's made him take the initiative for once. Chang-wook asks if she has some time to talk. Without hesitation, Yumin tells him to wait at the smoking booth, assuring him she'll be right there. She walks off with a surprising spring in her step, a hint of excitement trailing behind her. Watching her go, Chang-wook finds himself wondering what exactly could make her that cheerful. As he waits by the booth, a fellow engineering student passes by and greets him casually. Chang-wook's eyes widened in surprise. It's the first time anyone has randomly greeted him like that. He gives a nod back, still processing the sudden social warmth. A short while later, Yumin returns. Chang-wook asks if she's done with her work, but she brushes off the question with a light smile. For graduate students, she says, there's no such thing as done. Still, she's already cleared time for him, so she gets straight to the point and asks why he wanted to see her. Chang-wook hesitates for a second, then pulls out his phone and shows her the infamous Rome account. He asks cautiously if she's the person behind it. Yumin leans in and glances at the screen, only to see the post is already deleted. Her expression shifts slightly as she taps around, eventually realizing the account is tied to their university's online community. She looks up, puzzled, and asks what's so strange about it. That's when Chang-wook explains. He tells her about the rumor surrounding the Room account, the one known for uploading suggestive photos every night. As he describes it, Yumin's eyes widen in disbelief, and an involuntary exclamation escapes her. Then the mood shifts. She turns to him, her expression sharp and defensive. Her voice rises as she demands to know why he'd even ask her if she was the one behind an account like that. Her tone accuses him outright, suggesting that he must think she's the type to post such photos. An exhibitionist, maybe? But Chang-wook quickly waves it off, rushing to explain that he didn't mean it like that. He tries to calm the tension, telling her that he only brought it up because he's worried. Whoever the person is, posting images like that online is dangerous. He hadn't meant to accuse her, only to express concern. Yumin chuckles, feigning innocence, and teases him further, asking how it's dangerous. That gives Chang-wook a chance to explain. He recounts how some guys in their department had been talking about the Rome account, and how one even made a disturbing comment about what they'd do if they caught her. The implication had been ugly. He makes it clear that flaunting one's body, whether in person or through photos, doesn't automatically mean consent. And even someone like Yumin, who enjoys pushing boundaries, surely has her own lines that shouldn't be crossed. The word slips out as he tries to make his point, and Yumin responds with a punch to his arm, light but firm. Her smirk returns as she tells him slyly that maybe it'd be safer if he were with her instead of leaving her to the others. Their moment is cut short when they notice people nearby, voices and footsteps echoing. Yumin doesn't miss a beat. She suggests they relocate and leads him to one of the graduate labs. As the door clicks behind them, Chang-wook's nerves spike. He looks around, his voice low but urgent as he questions her sanity. If they get caught by another student, it would be bad enough. A professor? Career ending. But Yumin waves off, his concern saying her professor isn't on campus today, so there's nothing to worry about. Chang-wook narrows his eyes, skeptical. He asks if this whole thing is just her way of silencing him, a tactic to make him drop the topic. But Yumin only grabs his hand with a mischievous glint in her eyes and says she's just excited. His gaze shifts to the corner of the room where a mattress lies on the floor. It catches him off guard. Disbelief colors his face as he points at it, asking what that's even doing there. Yumin avoids his stare, her voice nonchalant as she says he'll find out once they start whatever it is they came in for. Yumin often thinks back to a few years ago, a time when everything felt new and confusing. She remembers how nervous she was when she first thought about getting close to Chang-wook in a way she hadn't with anyone else. Her heart beat too fast, her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and her mind kept racing with all sorts of worries. But in the middle of all that mess, Chang-wook stayed calm. He gave her the kind of quiet reassurance that didn't need many words. He made her feel like it was okay to be scared, and even more okay to take things slow. Classic Chang-wook, like a walking, talking comfort blanket. Back in her university days, though, things were not so simple. Her very first boyfriend turned out to be a bad idea wrapped in good looks. He wasn't kind, and he didn't make her feel safe. Because of that, Yumin never allowed herself to get close to him. It wasn't just about the boyfriend, though. At the time, she blamed herself. She thought maybe she just liked weird things. Weird how? She wasn't even sure. She even started wondering if the real problem was that she didn't actually feel anything for the guy at all. Maybe her heart had checked out before things even started. And so, without ever being hurt by a man or sharing anything intimate, with one, she still ended up trying out those odd private habits on her own. Just her and her imagination. Who needs a partner when you've got curiosity and a locked door? Now, fast forward to the present. Here she is, with Chang-wook again. They've just done their usual weird thing, which by now isn't that weird anymore. It's more like a routine with occasional giggles and tangled clothes. After they finish and start getting dressed, there's that familiar quiet between them. Not awkward, just soft and comfortable, like two people tying their shoelaces before heading out. As they get ready to leave, Chang-wook suddenly brings up a video he saw. His tone gets a bit serious, like a parent warning a child not to touch the stove. He starts warning her not to talk about the video, but Yumin, without even blinking, cuts him off. She waves off the idea completely, letting him know it wasn't even her in the first place. It was Ah-room, that other girl. Chang-wook feels completely shocked when he realizes that Yumin is not actually Ah-room. He has been thinking all along that she was the girl in the video, and now that she says otherwise, his mind starts spinning. He begins to wonder who the girl could really be. Yumin, on the other hand, thinks the mystery girl has a body shape similar to some of the girls in their department. She casually suggests that it might be Seo Hyune or Seol Ah pretending to be Ah-room. She doesn't sound too sure, but the idea seems possible. Then, she advises Chang-wook that if the real Ah-room ever shows up again in the community, he should just give her a quiet warning to stop whatever she's doing. She remembers how seriously Chang-wook spoke about the situation before, especially the part where he said it could be a big problem if someone found out about Ah-room's private interests and tried to use it against her. Still, Yumin is too curious to let it go. She begs Chang-wook to screenshot the girl's picture from the video. She says she just wants to see how attractive the body really is, because the whole situation has made her imagination run wild. After that, she tells Chang-wook she has other things to take care of and decides to leave. They go their separate ways for the day. A few days later, Chang-wook receives an email reminding him that his exam is coming up. He sighs as he thinks about how he doesn't have anyone to exchange information with. Since he is an outsider, he knows that once again he'll be studying all by himself, just like usual. While he's still sitting there in his thoughts, someone suddenly calls out his name. He turns around and sees a guy he doesn't recognize. The guy is also a student and mentions that they were once in the same group, but Chang-wook, honestly, has no memory of his face. It's awkward, but the student doesn't seem to care. He introduces the class he's in now and acts like they've been good friends all along. Chang-wook starts to feel a bit strange about it. He wonders why students he barely knows are being so friendly with him all of a sudden. It feels too familiar, almost like they know something he doesn't. He hopes it's nothing bad, but a small part of him stays alert, just in case. Just like that, the male student starts following Chang-wook to his class and even decides to sit next to him. At first, when Ciola spots Chang-wook, she considers going over to greet him, but when she sees the male student sticking to him like glue, She hesitates and decides to hold back. As the day goes on, the male student starts to get Chang-wook to pay for his lunch and dinner, which takes him by surprise. Chang-wook wonders if it's okay to pay for his underclassman's food. It feels a little off, but the student doesn't seem to care. Later, the male student asks if Chang-wook wants to study together for the exam, but Chang-wook, not interested in spending any more time with him, politely declines. That's when the male student drops a bombshell. He admits that he initially thought Chang-wook was the type to seduce female students every day since he's always alone.
The student came to meet him thinking he might get caught up in some drama, but after seeing how things really were, he realized he was completely wrong. With a chuckle, the male student says he'll leave now, but makes sure to let Chang-wook know that he'll definitely be back whenever he's looking for something free. Chang-wook doesn't know what to make of that, but he's glad when the student walks away. Once the male student leaves, Chang-wook decides not to dwell on it. He'd rather focus on finding a quiet spot to study. When he arrives at a peaceful place, he spots an empty seat next to a young lady. At first, he doesn't bother checking who's sitting next to him. But later, as he looks up, his eyes widen in surprise. It's Ciola. What catches his attention first is her hair, the way she styled it. It makes her look even more beautiful than usual. Ciola, on her end, is also happy to see him, though she doesn't let it show. She casually asks why he came to this place alone and wonders what happened to the male student who was hanging around him earlier in the day. Chang-wook can instantly tell from Ciola's tone that her question is driven by jealousy. He decides to confront her about it. Ciola tries to play it cool, pretending she's not jealous at all. Instead of responding to his comment, she just asks him to stop using formal language with her, hinting that they're not strangers anymore. Not long after, Ciola stands up. Chang-wook thinks she's about to leave, but then she casually mentions she's just going to the restroom. While she's gone, Chang-wook's phone buzzes. It's another message from Ariam, and this time, it includes some pictures. He stares at the images, trying to figure out who it could be. Then, a thought crosses his mind. He remembers that it was just when Ciola went to the restroom that he received the message. Could it be that Ariam is actually Ciola? He begins to wonder if the timing is more than just a coincidence. Immediately, Chang-wook jumps up from his seat and rushes to the men's restroom, convinced that Ciola must be hiding there, the one who sent those pictures. But when he enters, he's taken aback. The restroom looks completely different from what he saw in the pictures, and there's no sign of Ciola. Instead, he only meets a man who came in to use the restroom. The layout isn't even close to matching what was in the photo, and that throws Chang-wook off even more. Feeling confused and a little frustrated, Chang-wook decides to sit in the restroom for a moment, trying to think things through. He starts wondering what he should do next, eventually coming up with an idea. He decides to leave a comment for Ciola, warning her to stop whatever it is she's doing. He types up a message, lying that he knows her true identity, hoping it'll make her back off. But as soon as he posts it, things take an unexpected turn. Some people in the comment section attack him, accusing him of just trying to grab Ariam's attention. That wasn't his intention at all, but the backlash makes him rethink his approach. After a few more comments, he decides to stop commenting for now. He hopes the idea of him knowing who the girl really is will make whoever Ariam is think twice and get scared. Still feeling unsettled, Chang-wook tries to calm down and think of what to do next. He glances back at the pictures Ariam sent him. The background in them looks oddly familiar, like a place he's been to before. He tries to remember, and after a moment, it clicks. The room Ariam was using looks like the computer lab on the 5th floor of the Science and Engineering building. He often goes there because not many people use it, and the building is just next to the library. With his heart racing, Chang-wook figures that if he runs, he might still be able to catch up to her. Without wasting another second, he hurries out of the restroom, determined to get to the building as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Ciola returns to the library, carrying 2 coffees, the kind of gesture that's supposed to be a sweet surprise. But when she reaches their usual spot, she's greeted by nothing but an empty chair. There's no sign of Chang-wook anywhere, and for a moment, she stands there, a little dumbfounded, trying to piece together where he could have gone. Annoyed, she taps her foot, staring at the spot where he should have been. Maybe he went to get something, maybe he's lost, maybe he just vanished into thin air. Either way, she's not happy. She decides to kill some time, fixing herself up in a bid to look even more stunning, just in case he miraculously comes back. She waits, glances around, checks her phone, and still no Changwook. The frustration builds, like waiting for a bus that doesn't show up. Meanwhile, Changwook is deep in the corridors, determined to figure out where Ariam might be. He's about to check the rooms when suddenly, a woman sprints past him, looking remarkably like Hyune. She's running so fast, her clothes are practically flying out of her arms like a fashion disaster in motion. She's out the door without a care in the world, leaving Changwook to watch her in a mix of surprise and confusion. At first, he thinks about chasing her down, but then, like a cartoon character, his leg protests. It's been way too long since he last ran, and it hurts like he's just tried to sprint a marathon. Great timing, right? His chance to figure out what's going on vanishes as quickly as Hyune. Just when it seems like things can't get any worse, luck decides to play nice. As Hyune bolts off, her glasses fall, and she doesn't even notice. Changwook, like a man on a mission, swiftly picks them up. He takes a close look, almost studying them with the kind of focus usually reserved for rare treasures. And then, like a detective in a bad movie, he tries to recall any electrical engineering students who might wear glasses like those. The name Hyune pops up, but he can't help but doubt it. Hyune, shy as a mouse. Changwook starts feeling the weight of exhaustion creeping in, the dizziness sneaking up on him like a bad headache. Deciding he's had enough for the day, he heads toward home, but then it hits him. His bag is still at the library. Of course, right? So he takes a detour, hoping to grab it and just get on with the day. When he arrives, he notices something strange. A coffee cup sitting there, untouched. Ciola's coffee, the one she bought for him. But she's nowhere to be found. As if things couldn't get worse, he sees a little note taped to the edge of the cup. It's her message. Apparently, she's already gone home, disappointed, leaving him with nothing but an empty coffee cup and a heavy heart. The next day, as Changwook walks into school, he can't help but think about Hyune. The glasses were one thing, but he knows judging her based on just that wouldn't get him anywhere. Hyune's style tends to be loose-fitting, making it impossible to figure out anything about her body shape. But still, that mysterious connection lingers. He's about to get lost in the thought when reality smacks him across the face. Exams. The looming threat of tests and deadlines reminds him that his brain is better off focused on that than worrying about who might be behind those glasses or which body shape fits Ariam. He enters the building, trying to shake off his thoughts, when he notices a group of students gathered around a lady. Moving closer, he spots a familiar face among the crowd. It's Hyune, and she's looking at him, as if sensing his approach. As soon as she sees him, she steps away from the group and comes right over. She bows her head before him, and Changwook, a little flustered, tries his best to mask his surprise. But the more he looks at her, the more things don't add up. She's not wearing glasses today, and her outfit, tight clothes that hug her shape, makes her look completely different. She looks, well, stunning. Changwook can't help but wonder if this is really the same Hyune he's known. Is she really that beautiful? He's lost in thought, still piecing together the puzzle of who she might really be. And as he stands there, thinking about it all, Hyune just quietly watches him. Maybe she knows he's having a moment of realization, or maybe she's just curious about his reaction. Changwook hesitates for a moment, wondering if he should just flat out ask Hyune if she's the mysterious Ariam. But then, he notices the crowd still lingering around them, and the last thing he wants is to have this conversation in front of a bunch of spectators. So, with a casual attempt to seem calm, he suggests they move somewhere quieter, like the department room. Hyune, without hesitation, agrees and follows him. The male students nearby can't help but watch, their eyes glued to the scene unfolding before them. They're baffled at how Hyune follows Changwook so effortlessly, and they're definitely noticing the difference today, her tight-fitting clothes revealing more of her body than they've ever seen before. She's stunning, and the guys start whispering amongst themselves. One of them even wonders out loud if she's Changwook's girlfriend, but the others aren't so sure. They can't wrap their heads around it, especially with Hyune's mysterious aura. When they finally reach the department room, Changwook is caught off guard by how empty it is. It's eerily quiet, no sign of anyone else. The room seems untouched, almost as if the building itself was in on the secret. Hyune breaks the silence, asking him what it is that he wanted to talk about. That's when it hits him. He's not sure how to ask her. What if she isn't Ariam? What if this whole thing falls apart in his face? He feels a wave of regret wash over him, berating himself for not planning this better. His mind races with 1,000 possible scenarios, none of which seem to make sense. But just as quickly, he decides to stop second-guessing himself. He takes a deep breath and goes for it. He asks her directly, without any preamble, if she's the one behind the Ariam profile online. As soon as the question leaves his lips, Changwook's heart starts pounding in his chest. It's too late to take it back now, so he steels himself for her answer, whatever it may be. For a brief moment, Hyune goes blank, caught off guard. She stammers, clearly surprised that she's been caught so quickly. But there's no point in denying it. With a deep sigh, Hyune confesses that she is indeed Ariam, the one who had been commenting online. And then, in a move that completely catches Changwook off guard, she kneels down before him. Her voice is laced with guilt as she apologizes, acknowledging that she had disrespected him online. Her sincerity hits him like a ton of bricks. Hyune tells him that she's ready to accept any punishment he decides to give her for what she's done. Changwook feels the weight of the situation settle over him. He looks at Hyune, still kneeling before him, and he realizes that he hasn't meant to punish her. He just needed to understand who she really was. His voice softens as he explains that his comment came from a place of concern. He's heard rumors, dangerous ones, people saying they want to have something with her. Once they figure out who she is, the thought alone troubles him, which is why he commented the way he did. But as soon as he finishes, he notices Hyune turn away from him, her posture stiff with discomfort. Her shyness is palpable, and it's clear she's unable to face him. He wonders if it's the guilt of her actions online. She hadn't realized that the person she disrespected was him. The one she'd been indirectly insulting was the very guy she had a crush on. Changwook, seeing her pull away, mistakes it for anger. He reaches for her, wanting to console her. But before he can figure out what's going on, Hyune's balance falters. She starts to fall, and instinctively, he pulls her back, preventing her from crashing to the ground. In the sudden motion, she ends up lying against him, her face inches from his. Hyune is stunned, not just by the fall but by how quickly Changwook acted to save her. The close contact catches her off guard, and she feels her heart race. It's a moment of unexpected tenderness that neither of them had anticipated. As Hyune tries to gather herself and get back on her feet, the sound of a knock breaks the silence. Changwook freezes, immediately recognizing the voice. Ciola. A mixture of surprise and confusion hits him as he calls out, confirming if it's really her. Ciola answers, standing outside the room. She explains why she's here. She came to apologize. The rift between them, she admits, is her fault, and she wants to make it right. Her unexpected vulnerability catches Changwook off guard. He never expected Ciola to admit her fault so openly. For a moment, he's at a loss for how to respond. Meanwhile, Hyune, still lying against him, shifts uncomfortably. She's aware of the tension in the room and can't help but feel a pang of jealousy. She asks Changwook if he's planning to go out with Ciola. He quickly denies it, but deep down, Hyune can't shake the feeling that even though she's right here, Changwook's mind is still on Ciola. It makes her feel uneasy. Outside, Ciola waits for a response, but the silence inside the room only leaves her wondering what's going on. Why hasn't he answered yet? Changwook is so absorbed in his thoughts and the moment with Hyune that he loses track of Ciola standing just outside the room. His mind is tangled with the confusion of everything, his growing connection with Hyune, the apology Ciola offered, and the emotional weight of it all. It's only when he hears Ciola call his name that he's jolted back to reality. The realization hits him hard and he quickly tells Ciola to go on without him for now. He assures her they'll talk later, hoping that his words sound convincing enough. However, as soon as he speaks, he notices a subtle shift in Ciola's posture. The disappointment in her expression is palpable even though she doesn't say anything. As Changwook and Hyune step out of the department room, their attempt to move discreetly toward their next class is anything but smooth. They do their best to avoid the groups of students milling about, but the moment they think they've successfully dodged the crowds, they hear familiar voices. A group of male students stands nearby, discussing Ariam's most recent uploaded pictures. Their words are clear, and it's impossible to ignore the topic. Changwook and Hyune exchange uncomfortable glances. The situation feels almost suffocating. With awkwardness thick in the air, they both avoid looking directly at the students, instead keeping their eyes glued to the floor as they hasten their steps, hoping to blend into the crowd and escape unnoticed. The conversation around them fades as they move further away, but the weight of the discussion lingers, making them feel exposed. As they continue walking, Changwook's unease grows. It dawns on him that almost everyone in their department now knows about Ariam, and with her identity tied to him, it's only a matter of time before the pressure becomes unbearable. He can't hold it in any longer, and the question he's been pushing aside finally escapes his lips. He asks Hyune how she ended up uploading those pictures. Hyune falters for a moment. She hadn't expected the question, and as she tries to think of an answer, she realizes she doesn't really have one. She hadn't considered the consequences of her actions when she posted the pictures. To her, it had seemed like a harmless way to express herself without considering how it might affect others, especially Changwook. She looks up at him, unsure how to explain. Her thoughts are jumbled, but she eventually admits that she didn't think there was any particular reason behind what she did. Changwook notices the discomfort in Hyune as she tries to explain her actions. She hesitates but eventually admits that the reason behind posting those pictures was a simple yet painful truth: she wanted attention. It hadn't been easy for her to get noticed before, so she thought that putting herself out there online would attract the kind of attention she desperately craved. As she confesses, a strange sense of relief washes over her, yet a new weight settles in. Listening to her, Changwook can't help but think that with her beauty already becoming more apparent, she would surely receive attention on her own from now on. He tells her that her looks alone would draw people's gazes, something he's certain of. However, Hyune seems to doubt his words, feeling more embarrassed than anything else. The online attention she once found thrilling now feels like a regret. Changwook is taken aback by her reaction, realizing she can't fully own the choices she made, and wonders why someone as timid as her would resort to such attention-seeking behavior. It's a paradox that doesn't quite make sense to him. But as Hyune continues to talk, she surprises him once more. Despite the embarrassment she now feels, she reveals that she is still grateful for what she did online because it led her to have her first experience with him, the person she genuinely respects. Changwook feels a knot form in his stomach, unsure of what to make of this new layer of complexity in their interactions. Why would she respect him so much? Was this entire situation just about respect, or was there something deeper he hadn't grasped yet? Before he can dwell too much on it, the male students they had passed earlier finally realize it's Hyune walking alongside him. Their eyes widen and their chatter grows louder as they start to notice her newfound beauty, which they hadn't fully registered before. Their attention shifts from Changwook to Hyune with startling intensity. The students start pushing their way toward her, practically shoving Changwook aside in their eagerness to get closer to her. Seeing the situation getting out of hand, Changwook realizes he's no longer needed. He quickly steps back, maneuvering his way through the growing crowd of students. The day at school becomes a whirlwind for Hyune as the male students continue to hover around her, trying to get her to remember their faces. They eagerly reminisce about past encounters, but Hyune is caught off guard. She's overwhelmed by the sudden surge of attention, unsure of how to respond, her mind still processing what happened earlier with Changwook. She watches helplessly as Changwook walks away, feeling even more isolated than before. As the day progresses, the attention from the guys doesn't die down. In fact, it only grows stronger. Everywhere Hyune turns, there are eyes on her, and she struggles to concentrate on her classes. The constant gaze of her peers makes her uncomfortable, especially since she's not used to being in the spotlight. Even the other girls in her department, who used to be content staying under the radar, begin whispering behind her back, envious of the attention she's getting. Their gossip stings, making Hyune feel even more out of place. She can't help but notice how Ciola walks into class, and for the first time, she begins to understand what it feels like to be constantly observed. In the past, Hyune had assumed Ciola had it easy, but now she sees that the attention Ciola receives isn't always welcomed either. It's not as glamorous as Hyune once thought, and she starts to question whether being the center of attention is as desirable as she once believed. When Ciola approaches her, Hyune is initially taken aback. Ciola asks if she is Hyune, and for a brief moment, Hyune wonders if Ciola has been watching her. But when Ciola comments on how pretty Hyune is, a warm feeling spreads through her. It's a simple compliment, but it makes her feel good in a way she hasn't felt before. Hyune returns the compliment and Ciola notices her hair is a bit messy. Hyune, unsure of how to explain it, remains silent, but Ciola offers to help her fix it. Ciola takes charge, deftly styling Hyune's hair into a beautiful new look. As Ciola finishes, Hyune is amazed at how different she looks. It's the first time she's ever had her hair done like this, and she can't help but feel a sense of gratitude towards Ciola. She thanks her, and Ciola, in her usual nonchalant manner, brushes it off, saying it would be a waste to leave Hyune's hair undone when she has such a pretty face. The genuine kindness Ciola shows surprises Hyune, making her rethink her earlier assumptions about her. The two of them share a moment of quiet camaraderie, and Hyune begins to see Ciola in a new light. Just as they're talking, Changwook walks by. Hyune, eager to greet him, calls out to him, but Ciola's instincts kick in. She quickly realizes that Hyune may have been the one with Changwook earlier, and her suspicions only grow. Without warning, Ciola pulls Hyune aside, leading her into a quiet corner. Some other female students see the two of them, but, unsure of what's going on, choose not to interfere. Once they're alone, Ciola presses Hyune for answers, demanding that she confess what's really going on between her and Changwook. Hyune's heart races as she realizes that Ciola isn't asking out of simple curiosity. There's something more to this confrontation, and she isn't sure how much she's ready to reveal. Hyune stands there, bewildered, wondering what could have triggered Ciola's sudden behavior. She can't shake the thought that Ciola has figured out what happened between her and Changwook earlier that day. Ciola's expression, a mix of intensity and something Hyune can't place, makes her feel uneasy. She doesn't know how to respond, the words getting stuck in her throat as she fears the worst. But then Ciola unexpectedly apologizes. She explains that she's sorry for lying and trying to get a free ride off their group project, something Hyune hadn't even considered before. Hyune is taken aback, realizing that this is what Ciola has been grappling with. If she had known, Hyune thinks, she would have brought up their earlier encounter in the department room. She considers mentioning it now, but decides to play along, reassuring Ciola that it's fine since the project turned out well despite everything. Ciola, however, seems unsatisfied. She confesses that she's been trying to apologize to Changwook since then, but he hasn't accepted her apology. She mentions that she plans to apologize to the other group members next, though it seems like this is more of a personal burden on Ciola than Hyune had anticipated. As they speak, a group of senior female students enters the scene. The moment they see Ciola pinning Hyune to the wall, one of the seniors, Mi-young, immediately confronts them. Hyune, recognizing Mi-young, greets her by name, but Ciola remains silent, which prompts Mi-young to question why Ciola doesn't greet her as her senior. Ciola, however, shows no sign of concern or remorse for her actions. She isn't intimidated by Mi-young's authority and, instead, brushes off the question with an icy reply, saying it isn't Mi-young's business if she's arranging Hyune or not. Hyune, trying to clear up the confusion, quickly speaks up, explaining that the situation isn't what it appears to be. But before she can say much, Ciola cuts her off, refusing to explain anything further. Mi-young, now growing more irritated, questions Ciola's actions more pointedly, suggesting that she might be acting this way because she's jealous of Hyune's newfound attention and beauty. In a surprising twist, Ciola snaps back at Mi-young, accusing her of being the one who's actually jealous. Mi-young's temper flares at the retort, and she looks like she's about to slap Ciola, but her friends quickly intervene, holding her back to prevent things from escalating further. They all understand that the situation is delicate and they need to keep their composure, especially in front of the younger students. After a tense moment, Mi-young's expression softens slightly, but she still gives Ciola a stern warning. She tells her that she'll be watching her closely and will make sure Ciola regrets her actions later on. With that, Mi-young and her friends walk off, leaving Ciola and Hyune standing there in silence. Hyune is left speechless by the exchange. She hadn't expected Ciola to react so boldly. As they walk away from the confrontation with the seniors, Hyune finally gathers enough courage to ask Ciola why she acts the way she does toward them. Ciola takes a deep breath before explaining. She tells Hyune that the seniors have been picking on her ever since they noticed her, and they don't like her because of her personality and the way she carries herself. Ciola explains that if Hyune had sided with her, those senior students would have likely outcast her just as they have done to Ciola. This revelation surprises Hyune, but she quickly reassures Ciola that she isn't an outcast. In fact, she's so popular that Hyune thought that's why people always seem to gather around her. Ciola nods in understanding but doesn't seem particularly comforted by Hyune's words. She shares that she knows many men are eyeing Hyune because of her beauty, but still, Ciola has no one she can truly consider a friend. She advises Hyune to be careful, warning her that the other girls will likely become wary of her due to her looks, and she doesn't want Hyune to end up feeling isolated like she has. Hyune is genuinely surprised by Ciola's kindness. It's a side of Ciola she hadn't expected. The two end up walking home together that day, with Ciola opening up more about her experiences. She explains how ever since she started going to school, she has been noticed by others and it's made her feel like she's always on some kind of radar. Yet, despite all of this attention, Ciola makes it clear that she isn't going to change who she is. She encourages Hyune not to worry about her situation. As they walk, Ciola also notices that Hyune hasn't worn any makeup but still looks beautiful without it. As they are about to part ways, Ciola suddenly asks for Hyune's contact number, suggesting that after the exams, the two of them should go shopping together. She promises to help Hyune pick clothes and makeup that would really complement her natural beauty. Hyune, touched by the gesture, thanks Ciola, and they part ways, feeling a new sense of camaraderie. That night, Hyune can't stop thinking about how cool and kind Ciola is. She begins to understand why things seem to be going well between Ciola and Changwook before, and she feels a little guilty. She wonders if she has been the one who came between them, especially now that she's getting closer to Ciola. Ciola, noticing the distant look on Hyune's face, asks her what's wrong. Hyune hesitates but lies, saying it's nothing. Unbeknownst to both of them, Changwook has been walking behind them, overhearing their conversation about their plans to go shopping after the exams. He is surprised to see the two girls together, but he remains silent as he processes the unexpected encounter. A few days later, Changwook finds himself alone, feeling frustrated about bombing his midterm exams. He is lost in thought when he hears someone call his name. He turns around and sees Yumin standing there. Her sudden appearance catches him off guard, and Changwook's reaction makes it clear that he isn't exactly thrilled to see her. Yumin, noticing his cold demeanor, asks him what's wrong, wondering why he isn't reacting the way a colleague should when meeting another colleague. Yumin then invites him to grab a drink with her at Shinshin that evening. Changwook, still thinking about his exams, asks her if there is some kind of celebration going on. He has seen the group chat and assumes it's just another social gathering. Without waiting for her reply, he bluntly tells her that he doesn't think it's necessary for someone like him, an outsider, to join in. Hearing this, Yumin doesn't bother trying to convince him further. She simply tells him she will be leaving and walks away. However, Changwook feels conflicted. He knows Shinshin is a popular place for students to unwind after exams, but he isn't sure he fits in. Despite his hesitation, Yumin insists that he still come because she will be there, and that leaves Changwook with no choice but to agree. With that, he makes his way home. Later in the evening, Changwook arrives at Shinshin, and just as he suspected, he is greeted by unfamiliar faces. He immediately knows that he's going to be stuck with people he doesn't really know, but since he's already there, he has no choice but to sit down. As he settles in, Yumin spots him and, with a bright smile, thanks him for coming. She pats his head playfully, which makes Changwook feel awkward. He doesn't know how to respond, but he doesn't want to make a scene, so he just stays quiet and allows it to happen. Just as the situation starts to feel uncomfortable, Hyune enters the scene. Changwook's eyes widen in surprise as he spots her walking toward him. She notices him and immediately greets him with a warm smile, catching him off guard. He's unsure what to make of it, but he returns her greeting nonetheless. To his further surprise, Hyune sits down beside him, clearly comfortable and relaxed. Yumin, on the other hand, is visibly confused. She watches Hyune with a raised eyebrow, unsure of who she is, but sensing that there's something between the two of them. She doesn't know why Hyune would greet Changwook so casually, and it piqued her curiosity. Hyune greets Yumin with a polite smile, and it takes a moment for Yumin to recognize her. She explains that she didn't recognize Hyune at first because she wasn't wearing her glasses. Hyune quietly admits that she's lost them, which explains why she hasn't been able to put them on. Changwook, sensing an opportunity to ease the awkwardness, chimes in, mentioning that he's the one who accidentally kicked Hyune's glasses the other day and had brought them for her. Hyune smiles in gratitude, thanking him for returning them. Changwook, however, begins to feel increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. The tension between him and Hyune from earlier still lingers, making him nervous. So he stands up abruptly, claiming he needs some fresh air and walks away to distance himself from the awkwardness. Yumin, not letting it go, follows him. She confronts him about using personal words with Hyune, expressing her frustration and confusion over his behavior. Changwook, feeling his patience run thin, tells her that it's none of her business. His response only angers Yumin further. She starts raising her voice, now understanding why others find it hard to be around him. Her anger builds as she considers how to punish him for his actions, but Changwook, maintaining his composure, warns her not to try anything. He tells her he was simply trying to be respectful, but now he has had enough. Back at the table, Hyune watches them from a distance, noticing the tension between the two but not hearing their conversation. She can't help but feel uncomfortable, sensing that their relationship is closer than she initially thought. She wonders why they seem to be so familiar with each other when, as far as she knew, they were just colleagues. A few moments later, Yumin approaches Hyune. She suggests that next time, Hyune should refer to Changwook by his name and avoid using personal terms. Alternatively, she tells her she could call him Appa. Hyune is confused and unsure why this is necessary, but, feeling the pressure of the situation, reluctantly agrees to follow Yumin's advice. Satisfied with Hyune's response, Yumin leaves to get drinks, leaving Hyune to reflect on what just happened. As the drinking session continued, most of the attention in the group remained focused on Yumin. Her presence and carefree vibe seemed to captivate the guys around her. However, it didn't take long before Yumin started to get drunk. Hyune, noticing Yumin's condition, kept reminding Changwook not to drink too much so that he wouldn't end up drunk as well. But Changwook soon realized that Hyune, too, had been drinking more than she could handle. She kept repeating the same words, and before he could react, Hyune grabbed onto his hand, showing clear signs of drunkenness. Changwook became upset, especially since he knew it was someone who had encouraged her to drink too much. He asked one of the guys sitting nearby about Hyune's drinking, but they reassured him that she had only had 2 cups. Changwook began to consider that Hyune's low alcohol tolerance might be the issue. In response, he decided to give her soft drinks instead and warned her not to drink at places filled with guys in the future. Hyune, still somewhat out of it, didn't fully understand what he was trying to convey. As the night went on, Hyune began feeling uncomfortably hot. In a haze, she pulled off her jacket, revealing her tight top. The guys around her were stunned, having never noticed her curves before, and their attention shifted to her. Drunk and no longer shy, Hyune leaned closer to Changwook, placing his hand on her chest. This bold move shocked everyone in the room, including Changwook, who was left both embarrassed and unsure of how to react. Yumin, noticing what was happening, grew extremely jealous and couldn't tolerate seeing Hyune behave that way toward Changwook. She quickly pulled him away from the group and took him to another seat, telling him that he shouldn't be taking care of his underclassmen like that. Instead, she said he should start focusing more on his colleague, subtly hinting at her own feelings for him. Changwook, though, caught on to her intent, and in response, he pointed out that she, too, should stop pushing underclassmen to drink and behave inappropriately. As they exchanged these words, Hyune approached Changwook again, this time to ask him to refill her cup, noticing that his was empty. However, as Changwook stood up, Yumin grabbed his other arm, both women vying for his attention. The guys at the table were shocked, realizing that Changwook had somehow found himself at the center of attention from 2 girls. Meanwhile, one of the guys, feeling like Ciola was the only one left for him, tried texting her to join them, only to receive a response that she wouldn't be available. Changwook overheard this and felt a sense of relief, pleased by Ciola's absence. Taking advantage of the situation, Changwook excused himself, saying he needed to use the bathroom. He managed to slip away from both Yumin and Hyune, relieved to have some space. However, as he entered the bathroom, he had an unexpected encounter. To his surprise, Hyune was already inside and he had no idea how she had gotten there. She explained that she had come to talk to him, though Changwook couldn't help but wonder why she would choose the men's bathroom to have a conversation. Changwook quickly drags Hyune out of the bathroom, realizing that it's likely because she's drunk that she ended up in the men's restroom without noticing. He feels responsible for her and decides to buy her a drink to help clear her head. Hyune is grateful for his care, thanking him for looking after her. Changwook, still feeling protective, tells her not to go out drinking like that again. Hyune nods, appreciating his concern. As they walk together, Hyune remembers that she wanted to talk to Changwook about something important. She asks if they can go somewhere quiet to have a conversation. Changwook is hesitant, thinking that the only quiet place would be a motel, which is too expensive for him. But then he recalls another place that might be more affordable, and they decide to go there instead. When they arrive at the place, both of them feel an awkward tension. The room they're in is dim and silent with no lights on. Changwook tries to call attention to the lack of lighting, but he's told that they would need to use a card to turn the lights on. They both hesitate, unsure of what to do, before deciding to leave and find another place to sit. With the awkwardness lingering between them, Hyune tries again, wanting to talk to Changwook about what's been on her mind. But just as she's about to begin, Changwook unexpectedly leans in and kisses her. Hyune freezes, surprised by his sudden action. She wasn't expecting this and doesn't know how to react at first. Meanwhile, back at the drinking spot, Yumin grows increasingly restless. She realizes that Changwook has been gone for a while and wonders where he went. As she sits with the underclassmen, her attention is no longer on the drinks or the fun atmosphere. Her mind is entirely on Changwook and she can't shake the feeling that something's off. She tries calling him, but he doesn't pick up, not knowing that he's busy with Hyune. The underclassmen encourage her to continue drinking with them, but Yumin isn't interested anymore. She's only focused on finding out what Changwook is doing. The following morning, Changwook wakes up feeling the lingering effects of the previous day. He casually asks Hyun if she slept well, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. However, Hyun's response immediately catches him off guard. She claims that she feels like she made a huge mistake the day before, leaving him stunned and uncertain. He's momentarily speechless, trying to process her words. His mind quickly begins to race and his thoughts take a sudden turn. He wonders, with a bit of panic, if he did something wrong, even going so far as to question if he might have thrown himself at a barely conscious, possibly drunk Hyun. His heart skips a beat and guilt starts to settle in as he assumes the worst. Realizing that the best course of action is to apologize first, Changwook resolves to take the initiative and clear the air. However, before he can even gather his thoughts, Hyun surprises him again. She immediately takes the first step and apologizes, admitting that she couldn't stop her urges and that she might have caused him unnecessary trouble. This unexpected gesture of honesty catches him off guard. Despite his initial worries, he reassures her with a warm smile, telling her that everything is fine. There's no need to worry about it. The awkwardness begins to dissipate, but then Hyun shifts the conversation. She mentions that she wanted his advice about Ciola, further revealing that her mind is still occupied by the situation involving her friend. Soon after, Changwook and Hyun are sitting together at a local cafe. The soft clink of coffee cups and quiet murmurs of other patrons create a calm atmosphere, but the weight of the conversation feels heavy on both of them. As they begin to talk, Changwook learns that Ciola, who has always seemed confident and aloof, is actually being outcast by her peers. This revelation hits him harder than expected. He recalls the many times he has seen Ciola sitting alone, quietly observing the crowd around her, except for when groups of men would gather near her, showing a different side of her social life. This new information sparks a realization in Changwook. Ciola, whom he had assumed to be somewhat popular and untouchable, was actually isolated in her own way, and that fact troubled him. Hyun continues to elaborate, explaining that Ciola is, at her core, a genuinely good person, someone who doesn't deserve to be treated the way she's been. She shares that the issue began when Ciola made a bad impression on a senior female student, which led to a ripple effect, resulting in Ciola being intentionally ignored by many of the female students. To make matters worse, Hyun reveals that Ciola didn't attend the group meeting the day before because the message about the meeting was deliberately sent to everyone except her. The others had excluded Ciola, not giving her the chance to attend like everyone else. This revelation makes Changwook feel a deep sense of sympathy for Ciola. He hadn't known about the intentional exclusion, and it makes him uncomfortable to think that such things happen so casually. Hyun then explains how she took it upon herself to contact Ciola separately, letting her know about the meeting and offering her a chance to join. However, Ciola's response had been disheartening. Ciola declined, stating that she wouldn't be coming. Changwook, hearing this, begins to wonder aloud if Ciola was worried about what might happen if Hyun chose to side with her. Perhaps Ciola feared that by sticking up for her, Hyun would get on the wrong side of others or be labeled negatively, especially since the group dynamic was so fragile and divided. A couple of days after their conversation at the cafe, Changwook finds himself standing by the smoking booth, lost in thought. He thinks about how he has been keeping an eye on Ciola over the past few days. There's something that bothers him. Ciola seems to always be by herself, a lone figure in the midst of the university crowd. Changwook notices that the other girls have made it clear that they dislike Ciola, and it's as if the guys, despite their usual interest in her, are also hesitant to approach her. He can't help but feel a little concerned. But then Changwook reasons with himself, remembering that universities are full of people who come and go. Social dynamics constantly shift, and what feels important now might not be as big of a deal later. It's just another part of the experience, he tells himself. Still, something about the situation nags at him, especially when it comes to Ciola. Just as he's lost in his thoughts, he hears someone call his name. Before he can fully register what's happening, a bag is suddenly thrown at him. He instinctively ducks, catching the bag just before it hits him. Turning around, he sees Hyune standing there, her arms crossed with an expression that could only mean one thing. She's irritated. She asks him why he didn't come back to look for his bag earlier. Chang-wook realizes with a jolt that he had mistakenly thought his bag was lost, so he had gone out and bought a new one. Hyune, ever the practical one, scolds him, telling him not to go AWOL like that next time. Chang-wook, with his usual easygoing demeanor, retorts that he went home first because he was tired. Hyune gives him a nod of acknowledgement but doesn't press the matter further, deciding to leave. As she walks away, Chang-wook opens the new book he had just purchased, feeling the weight of the day settle in. But as he flips through the pages, a small note slips out from between the pages. He picks it up and, without much thought, reads it. His eyes widen slightly as he recognizes the handwriting. It's from Ciola. He recalls the time when he had seen her in the library the other day, sitting alone in a corner, deep in thought. Maybe it was her who left the note there. It's a small, almost insignificant detail, but it feels important to him. Later that evening, Chang-wook visits the library, hoping to find a quiet place to read. As he enters, he sees Ciola sitting at one of the tables, her attention focused on the book in front of her. It's already evening, and the soft glow of the library's lights creates a peaceful atmosphere. Ciola glances at the clock on the wall, surprised to see how late it is. She quietly remarks to herself that she doesn't want to go home yet, as if the library has become a temporary refuge for her. It's then that she hears someone speaking, commenting on how she's still at the library even though the exams are over and it's Friday. The voice teases her, calling her quite the honors student. Ciola turns around, half expecting to see a familiar face, but is surprised to see none other than Chang-wook standing there, a half-smile on his face. She raises an eyebrow, wondering aloud why he's here. It's clear from the way she says it that she's genuinely curious, not expecting to run into him in this quiet place. Ciola, with a light chuckle, remarks that he's probably here to study too, only for Chang-wook to shake his head with a grin and tell her that he actually came to see her. He adds that Hyune had mentioned she'd be here, which was why he decided to swing by. Ciola raises an eyebrow at that, teasing him by commenting on how chummy he seems with Hyune. Chang-wook, not missing a beat, responds by saying that the group missed her since she had been absent last week. Ciola then, with a slight smirk, asks him if he missed her too, to which he simply replies, yes, without hesitation. She laughs it off, dismissing it as a joke, but he insists with a more serious tone that he did miss her. A bit surprised by his directness, Ciola suddenly asks if he'd like to grab a drink with her. Chang-wook immediately agrees, leading the way, but as they start walking, she turns to him with a curious expression, asking why he reacted so eagerly. He just shrugs, his usual laid-back charm still very much intact, though Ciola remains slightly amused by his response. When they reach the first bar, they're quickly met with an unwelcoming reply. The attendant tells them there's no space available. Ciola groans but shrugs it off, only for the second attendant to add that it's quite loud in the bar if they don't mind the noise. Chang-wook looks around, seeing the crowd spilling over, and notes how on Friday nights, all the pubs and clubs are packed with students celebrating the end of exam week. He suggests they give it one more try, but Ciola doesn't seem hopeful, shaking her head and assuring him that there's no doubt they'll find the same result. Chang-wook then, with a slight grin, wonders what they should do now. Ciola, her voice casual but with a hint of excitement, proposes they go to his place since it's nearby. He hesitates for just a second but then agrees, asking if she's okay with that. Ciola, in her usual straight-talking manner, claims she's just really craving a drink. It's been a stressful few weeks and she's been feeling the pressure of it all. Chang-wook, ever the easygoing guy, smiles and tells her they should just head to the convenience store to grab some alcohol instead. Chang-wook and Ciola are now in the convenience store where Chang-wook has carefully selected enough drinks to get them through the night. Ciola, however, is a little more strategic, slipping a few snacks into the shopping basket with a smirk. She claims, rather matter-of-factly, that they need some snacks to go with the drinks. Chang-wook raises an eyebrow but doesn't argue, amused by her forwardness. After all, who wants to drink on an empty stomach? As Ciola adds a few more items, he tells her to wait outside while he picks up something to eat, not wanting to leave her out in the cold for too long. Once they're at his place, Ciola looks around, impressed by the neatness of his apartment. She raises some practical questions about the cost, security, and the usual things that someone would consider when seeing a new living space. Changwook, not missing the undertone, can't help but ask if she's looking for a room. Ciola, with a slight chuckle, just shrugs it off, saying she's just curious. Her teasing tone makes it clear that she wasn't being entirely serious. Inside the apartment, Ciola takes her first sip of soju, immediately making a bitter face at the strong alcohol. She quickly switches to water, commenting that the soju is too bitter for her. Changwook, watching her with a playful glint in his eye, teases her about her reaction. Ciola, her expression lightening as the soju begins to settle in, shoots back, saying that the mood seems to be getting lighter. She wonders, half joking, how he's planning to bring up the topic of her being bullied. Changwook pours her another drink, deciding that it's time to steer the conversation in a more comfortable direction. He proposes they start talking more openly now that they're both a little more relaxed. Ciola laughs, agreeing but teasing him at the same time, telling him not to pout and to relax. She pours him a drink in return, but in her tipsy state, the glass tips over, spilling some of the drink on his pants. Quickly, she hands him a napkin to clean it up, apologizing with a sheepish grin. The atmosphere between them is lighthearted, but as they continue to drink, Ciola's tone shifts. She asks if he remembers why she didn't attend last night's dinner, implying that she's really fallen into the role of the outsider. She describes herself as a real loser now and asks, almost as if seeking permission, if she can share her story with him. Changwook, sensing the seriousness in her voice, agrees without hesitation. Ciola then begins to open up. She tells him about the day she was caught at the talking bar. Ciola suddenly catches Changwook off guard by asking, with a slight nervousness in her voice, if she is pretty. Changwook is momentarily stunned by the unexpected question, but after a pause, he honestly tells her that she is indeed pretty. Ciola, however, dismisses the compliment almost immediately, telling him that being pretty doesn't really have its perks. In fact, she confesses that being pretty has led to her being bullied by other girls since she started school. No matter what she did, when she tried to be kind, others accused her of playing the field or trying to gain attention. Changwook, for a moment, can't help but feel doubtful about her claim. He wonders if she was really as pretty back then as she claims. To his surprise, Ciola pulls out a photo from her high school days and shows it to him. Changwook is taken aback by her youthful beauty, unable to hide his surprise. He admits she truly has the right to brag about her looks. Ciola continues, revealing something she had kept hidden for a while. She didn't really want to enter the engineering department, but she was hoping that being one of the few girls would spare her from the typical girl group dynamics, the whispering behind backs, the insults, and the competition. She had thought that maybe in a place like engineering it would be different, but to her surprise, the situation didn't change. As she tried to get closer to the other girls, they grew distant, leaving her feeling confused and disappointed. The guys, on the other hand, made their intentions all too clear, which only made everything more tiring and complicated. Eventually, she resigned herself to the reality of it all. She realized that if she was going to be insulted either way, she might as well take advantage of the situation. She decided that she would do whatever she wanted, no longer bothered by the opinions of others. The guys would help her when she needed it, and in return, she would repay them accordingly. As for the girls, they were just jealous, so she learned to ignore them. With this mindset, things became easier for her. School life wasn't really a priority anymore, so she poured herself into working part-time jobs instead, not caring much about fitting in or impressing anyone. Changwook, hearing all this, can't help but feel that maybe Ciola's approach is a bit too harsh, especially working at a bar. He voices his concern, but Ciola quickly reassures him, telling him not to misunderstand. The bar she worked at wasn't some shady establishment. In fact, it was a place where middle-aged men came to sip whiskey and have light conversations with the bartenders. It was a calm and mundane environment, nothing like what Changwook might have imagined. She explains that she had needed the money and was able to earn it quickly, which is why she ended up working there. However, right before she quits, he caught her, and that's how their paths crossed. She explains that since she made the choice to become a loner, she thought it would be okay to handle everything on her own. But despite her resolve, there's a lingering worry that if Changwook were to tell everyone what happened, things might escalate beyond just her being a loser. The fear of it turning into something worse, something she couldn't control, nags at her. Changwook, though, reassures her in his own calm way. He tells her that all he really needed from her was an apology and that contributing to the assignment was enough. He adds that he's not the type of person to blackmail anyone or make them feel worse than they already do. Ciola looks at him, a mix of relief and gratitude in her eyes, and she acknowledges what he's saying. She admits that if it had been anyone else, they probably would have demanded more from her, taken advantage of the situation. But not Changwook. Yumin arrives near Changwook's residence, a mischievous thought crossing her mind. She smirks, thinking about how surprised he'll be to see her showing up unexpectedly. But then her mind starts to wander as she recalls the strange situation from the night before. During dinner, she noticed that Changwook had disappeared, and oddly, she hadn't seen Hyune anywhere either. She wonders, with a little hint of suspicion, if there's something going on between them. But quickly, she dismisses the thought, reminding herself that she and Changwook are just friends. There's no need to overthink things. After all, it's not like there's anything between them to be concerned about. However, as she approaches the house, Yumin is caught off guard when she sees Changwook and Ciola walking out together. The two of them spot her at the same time, and there's a brief, awkward moment of surprise. Yumin freezes for a moment, unsure of how to process what she's just seen. Meanwhile, Changwook, clearly startled by the situation, scrambles to figure out how to explain what's going on. Ciola, though, is quick on her feet. With a friendly smile, she greets Yumin and casually explains that she came to see Changwook for help with an urgent assignment. She adds that Changwook couldn't be of much help, so she was about to leave. Ciola then turns the tables, asking Yumin why she's here so early. Caught off guard, Yumin stumbles a bit but quickly recovers. She grabs Changwook by the arm and claims she came over to have breakfast with him, emphasizing that they're good friends. Ciola, not easily deterred, doesn't let go of Changwook's hand, playfully asserting that she's going to eat with him instead. Now stuck in the middle of this escalating battle of wills, Changwook, ever the peacekeeper, awkwardly suggests that the three of them should just eat together. The two women glare at him, their competitive energy palpable, but after a tense pause, they reluctantly agree. With a sigh of relief, Changwook tries to catch up with them, his thoughts swirling. He wonders what he's gotten himself into, but for now he has no choice but to go along with it. A few days later on campus, Changwook finds himself reflecting on the events from the other day. Sila and Yumin had been chatting with each other comfortably while eating, but something about the atmosphere felt off. Despite their apparent ease with one another, there's a tension beneath the surface. Changwook wonders if there's always been this subtle rivalry between the two, or if something has shifted recently. He can't quite place it, but the discomfort lingers in his mind. His thoughts are interrupted when he realizes he's running late for class. Hastily, he tries to make up for lost time, weaving through the crowd with quick steps. In his rush, he bumps into someone, causing them to stumble and fall to the floor. He apologizes immediately, but when he looks up, he's struck by how beautiful she is. He doesn't recognize her and assumes she's a first-year student since he hasn't seen her around the department before. Despite his usual composure, Changwook feels a wave of nervousness wash over him. He offers to buy her a drink as a small token of apology and leaves, still feeling unsettled. Even with his experience dealing with people, there's something about her that makes him feel unsure of himself. Later, Yumin is sitting at her desk, focused on her work when the woman Changwook bumped into earlier walks into the office. Yumin notices that the woman seems to be in a good mood, her cheerful demeanor standing in contrast to her usual calm and composed self. It's clear that something has made her feel lighthearted today. She walks over to Yumin's desk, and Yumin, noticing her upbeat energy, asks if something good has happened. The woman doesn't give much away at first, but it's obvious that her mood is different from usual. There's an air of satisfaction about her, though she doesn't share the specifics. She doesn't linger long, instead getting to work, but her contentment is evident, leaving Yumin with an unanswered curiosity about the reason behind it. While Yumin watches her, Professor Choi smiles and says that it's nothing as she takes a sip of her drink, but Yumin, with her sharp intuition, senses that something is off, even if she can't pinpoint exactly what. Professor Choi Seo-hyun is an exceptional woman who has gained much attention for her impressive rise to the position of professor at a young age. Her lectures are always packed with students eager to learn, and she is highly respected in the academic community. Yumin, being a student under her, looks up to her as a role model. Yumin, always mindful of time, asks Professor Choi if it's okay for her to leave early. The professor agrees, but as Yumin begins to leave, Professor Choi hesitates, planning to ask her something. But by the time she's ready to speak, Yumin is already gone. It seems that Professor Choi was hoping to get more information on a student she met earlier, though Yumin's swift exit doesn't make it easy. Later that evening, Changwook is preparing to leave the campus when he overhears a group of students discussing the upcoming festival. He feels a sense of indifference, thinking it doesn't really concern him, but then he sees Ciola and something about her presence makes him freeze in place, wondering why he's suddenly hiding. It's a bit of an odd reaction, but it passes quickly as Ciola and Hyune start to walk together, likely heading somewhere important. Just as they walk away, Yumin appears seemingly out of nowhere, surprising both of them. She gives the two women a quick look, then turns to Changwook with a mischievous grin and asks if he's been peeking at them. Caught off guard, Changwook quickly denies it, but Yumin isn't done. She teases him further, asking why he's acting shy, especially after spending the whole night with Ciola. He tries to explain, but the words barely come out as he nervously mentions that Ciola only came to see him about her project. It seems like he's struggling to keep his composure while Yumin enjoys poking fun at him. Yumin, with a sly grin, points out that Ciola smells like the same shampoo he uses, making him feel like he's under the spotlight. He tries to brush it off, but he can't shake the feeling that he's being interrogated, especially when he and Ciola aren't even dating. He wonders why Yumin is so curious about it, asking her directly why she's so interested when it doesn't seem like her business. Yumin, not impressed by his tone, grows a little frustrated. She snaps back, asking why he's talking to her like that, as if she couldn't just be a little curious or interested in his life. It's not like she's done anything wrong, she thinks, her expression showing that she's genuinely irritated by his dismissal. As he listens to her, Changwook's mind drifts back to all the times Yumin has been there for him. He remembers how much she's helped and cared for him, and he realizes it wasn't fair of him to snap at her like that. His conscience weighs on him, and he immediately feels bad about how he spoke. He apologizes, admitting that he got carried away and that her teasing made him feel shy and embarrassed, which led to him losing his temper. Feeling a little guilty for being harsh, he proposes a solution: he'll treat her to dinner as a way to make it up to her. In a cozy coffee shop, the atmosphere is warm and lively, with the gentle murmur of conversations blending with the occasional clink of coffee cups. At a corner table, two young women, Hyune and Ciola, are immersed in their project, their focus unwavering as they sift through their materials. Despite the noise around them, they seem lost in their own world, the two of them working seamlessly together. A few men nearby can't help but notice the pair, drawn not just to their beauty but also to the evident intelligence and dedication they exhibit while working. The admiration is unmistakable, and the men exchange glances, clearly impressed by the women's concentration and teamwork. As the hours pass and their work progresses, Hyune, always one to think ahead, briefly looks up from her papers and suggests a break once they're done with their task. The idea of a dinner together after wrapping up the project brings a sense of lightness, and Ciola, though quieter, agrees without hesitation. They both return to their work with the quiet comfort of knowing there's something enjoyable to look forward to once their project is complete. The promise of food after all their hard work seems to make the task at hand a little less tedious. Time passes as they continue working, but just as they both reach for their phones at the same moment, an odd synchrony seems to take hold. Each woman has the same thought at the same time. They're both wondering what Changwook is up to. Changwook is seen chatting with a friend, asking if the snacks he brought are enough. He had offered to buy a meal, but his friend reassures him that, being college students, the snacks are more than enough. She mentions that she has work to attend to once they're done, and Changwook, with a slight chuckle, remarks that he definitely doesn't want to be a graduate student. The light-hearted conversation serves as a small break from the daily grind. Soon, his friend stands up to leave, but not before asking him, with a playful glint in her eyes, if he really isn't dating Ciola. Changwook hesitates for a moment before explaining that they had simply spent the night together by accident due to being incredibly drunk. They both decided it was better to pretend it never happened, moving on as if nothing had occurred. His friend smiles at his response, seeming to understand, and adds with a wink that it's fine for them to continue as they were. She even jokingly remarks that she's looking forward to their next new experience, a teasing comment that leaves Changwook wondering about the complexity of his relationships. As he heads home, Changwook's mind wanders. He starts to wonder if Yumin really just wants a casual, friends with benefits situation. His thoughts are interrupted when he spots a scene ahead. Professor Choi Seo-hyun, someone he recognizes as a highly respected individual, is being harassed by two men. She notices him and, without missing a beat, quickly runs over to him, thanking him for the coffee he had given her earlier. Changwook, still unaware of her full identity, is caught off guard by her sudden approach. Before he can process the situation further, one of the men approaches him and demands he leave, clearly attempting to intimidate him. Confused, Changwook decides to confront the men, insisting that he is a senior at the school and that they should leave the professor alone. The tension rises when the second man informs Changwook that the first guy is apparently her boyfriend. They explain that they had all been drinking together and the professor had become very drunk, so they were planning to take her home. Changwook, looking at the professor, asks if what they're saying is true. But the professor seems disoriented, clearly intoxicated, her gaze unfocused and unsteady. Something doesn't sit right with Changwook, though. Despite the men's claims, he begins to feel increasingly suspicious of their story. He challenges them, asking if they even know her name or which school she attends. The first man, visibly irritated, steps forward and throws a punch at Changwook. Stunned for a moment, Changwook instinctively retaliates, landing a punch of his own that sends the man crashing to the ground. The other men and bystanders watch in shock as Changwook stands, slightly taken aback by his own reaction. As the punch lands and the situation escalates, she quickly realizes how much danger they're in. Her instincts kick in, and before the second man can strike Changwook from behind, she pulls out an electric gun, stunning him with a swift zap. She remarks that she had hoped not to have to use it, but the danger has left her with little choice. Her actions, swift and precise, snap the moment back into focus, and for a brief second, she feels the adrenaline rush sobering her up. Changwook, sensing the immediate danger isn't over, grabs her hand and pulls her away. They both break into a run, the tension still palpable in the air. As they move quickly through the streets, Hyune can't help but laugh, the unexpected turn of events leaving her in disbelief. Her laughter is light but genuine as they escape from the chaos they just narrowly avoided. When they finally slow down and stop in a quieter street, both panting, Hyune remarks that she hasn't run like that in so long. The release of tension seems to be sinking in, and she lets out a breath, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Changwook, still trying to process everything, teases her by calling her junior, asking why she drank so much. Hyune laughs at the comment, amused by the fact that he would consider her young enough to be his junior. With a playful glint in her eyes, she asks him if she looks that young to him. Hyune then opens up a little, explaining that she had a blind date earlier that day. It didn't go well, and she was scolded about her age, which left her feeling low. In an attempt to ease her frustration, she ended up drinking more than she probably should have. Changwook, sensing a deeper emotional layer to her actions, asks if she's a third or fourth year student. But Hyune just smiles, telling him that he always seems to lift her spirits every time they cross paths. Her smile softens, and she states, almost defiantly, that she's still in her prime, making it clear that the laughter and teasing hide the vulnerability she feels beneath it all. Changwook, still processing everything, can't help but feel that she seems a little out of it, her words and demeanor hinting at something more beneath the surface. Seeing her still somewhat unsteady, Changwook decides to take matters into his own hands. He carefully picks her up, his concern growing as he leads her to a taxi. As they approach the cab, Hyune thanks him, her voice light but sincere. When she asks for his name, he tells her, and in a surprising move, she pecks him on the cheek before introducing herself in return. The gesture is brief, but the spark of curiosity and something else between them is unmistakable. The taxi drives off, and Changwook is left standing there, his hand instinctively touching the cheek she kissed, a slight blush creeping up his face as he tries to wrap his mind around what just happened. The following morning, Hyune is seen waking up with a start. Her head throbs, and as she processes the events of the night before, she curses herself out loud. She can't believe she did something like that, especially to a student, no matter how drunk she was. Her embarrassment is palpable, and the thought of going back to campus fills her with dread. Later, Changwook is seen casually chatting with Hyune. He asks her if she knows a junior named Hyune, but Hyune doesn't seem to make the connection at first. She tells him that she doesn't know anyone by that name and suggests they go grab something to eat outside since she's sick of the usual school food. As they talk, a group of girls nearby are gossiping about Ciola, who's sitting alone at a table without Hyune, and how they think it's strange. Changwook overhears and, curious, glances over. Sure enough, he spots Ciola sitting by herself, looking a bit distracted as she receives a message from Hyune about being stuck with festival preparations. Ciola, though she's used to eating alone, can't help but feel the weight of the piercing stares from others around her. It's an uncomfortable routine that she has come to accept, though it would be nice if the attention didn't feel so invasive. To her surprise, however, Changwook and Hyune walk over to her table, settling down across from her. Changwook casually tells her not to mind them, explaining that they just sat down since there were open seats. Hyune chimes in, teasing Ciola about hogging a whole table to herself, jokingly pointing out how strange it is for a first year to do so. As they settle into conversation eating their lunch, Ciola notices something interesting. She spots Hyune's school card, which has a unique design, and asks her how she got it. Hyune nonchalantly replies that she'll get one just like it when she becomes a grad student. This information causes Ciola to drop her chopsticks, her reaction both surprised and a bit flustered. She hadn't expected that response, and it catches her off guard. Hyune, noticing her reaction, teases Ciola, calling her out for acting like she touched a bug, which only makes Ciola feel more embarrassed. Meanwhile, a group of guys in the cafeteria are glancing over, clearly curious about the trio. They seem intrigued by the sight of Ciola and Hyune together, whispering amongst themselves, but they don't dare approach. After finishing their lunch, the trio leaves the cafeteria together. Hyune's phone buzzes with a new message from Hyune asking her to bring lunch because she doesn't think she'll be able to make it to school. Hyune, slightly amused, texts Hyune back asking if she couldn't just get food delivered instead. Hyune's response is a bit quirky. She admits she doesn't know how to order delivery, which makes Hyune chuckle. Ciola, noticing that Changwook isn't in any hurry to rush off, asks him if he has another class to attend. Changwook responds that he's actually free, enjoying his free period. With that, Ciola seems to hesitate for a moment before asking him if he would like to go somewhere with her, now that he has the time. As Hyune leaves the cafeteria, she can't help but notice how Ciola is acting a bit clingy toward Changwook. It's a subtle but noticeable shift in her behavior. Ciola seems to want his attention just a little more than usual, and it makes Hyune raise an eyebrow. But before she can think much more about it, she's interrupted by a group of girls who have been gossiping about Ciola for a while. These girls, clearly harboring some bitterness, approach Hyune and start spilling their opinions, claiming that Ciola is using Changwook to make herself look good and be treated like royalty. They go on, saying that Ciola has been rude to her female seniors, adding fuel to the fire. Hyune listens, her expression unreadable. The girls ask her if she doesn't find Ciola's behavior troubling. Hyune's response, however, isn't what they expect. She admits that while it's true Ciola can come off as spiteful, she doesn't think talking behind someone's back or making their life harder is the solution. In fact, she points out that such behavior is worse, and it's shameful for college students to act so immaturely. She doesn't agree with their judgmental approach, and with a firm but calm tone, she walks away, leaving the girls to stew in their own words. Meanwhile, Changwook seems somewhat out of place in a clothing store, looking nervously around. He feels a bit uncomfortable, as if he's not supposed to be there at all. Ciola notices his unease and can't help but tease him, calling him a puppy who looks like he needs to go home. Changwook, trying to brush off his discomfort, retorts that it just doesn't feel like he belongs in a clothing store. Ciola laughs at his response, clearly enjoying the teasing, and then informs him that she's going to try on some clothes. She asks him to look at them and give his opinion. As she changes into several dresses, Changwook can't help but offer the same simple praise each time: they look good. Ciola, however, is unsatisfied with just that. She pouts and playfully calls him a broken record, asking if that's the only compliment he knows. She reminds him that words like pretty or beautiful would go a long way, teasing him about his lack of creativity. Changwook, a bit embarrassed, tries to figure out how to compliment her, but before he can get the words out, something catches his eye. He notices a group of girls from their department standing near the entrance of the store, clearly watching Ciola. He immediately grows tense, realizing they might gossip about her even more if they see the two of them together. Thinking quickly, Changwook grabs Ciola by the arm and guides her into a dressing room, urging her to stay there for a moment. He explains that the girls from their department are around, and if they see them together, it could make things even harder for her. Ciola, surprisingly understanding, admits that she knew he had been looking out for her ever since they met. She thanks him for his kindness, even recalling how Hyune had told her that it was thanks to Changwook's encouragement that she had the courage to approach her in the first place. As a gesture of gratitude, Ciola leans in and gives him a quick peck on the cheek. It's a simple but meaningful reward for all his efforts to protect her from the judgment of others. Hyune is at the department, lost in thought as she thinks about Ciola. She can't get in touch with her, and the fact that she missed class only makes her more concerned. The quiet moments are interrupted when two guys approach her, calling out her name. Feeling nervous, she bows awkwardly, but one of them quickly points out that she doesn't recognize them as colleagues. It's clear she's a bit distracted, which doesn't go unnoticed. The conversation shifts to the upcoming festival, and one of the guys asks if she'll be serving at the bar. Hyune answers that she's not sure yet, and the first guy, who claims to be in charge of the food, says that he'll be handling the logistics there. The second guy chimes in, saying he'll be serving as well, and asks her what she plans to wear while working. Hyune, still a little flustered, replies that she doesn't know yet, but Ciola had offered to help her pick something out. The guy then asks for her contact details, and after she hesitates for a moment, she gives them to him. As they leave, she can't help but think about how lately more and more people are recognizing her and approaching her. It's a strange shift, and it makes her wonder if it's because of her growing connection with Ciola. Her thoughts, however, drift to Changwook. She wonders whether she should try reaching out to him first. The idea feels strange but not entirely unwelcome, leaving her feeling conflicted. Meanwhile, Yumin is helping Hyune figure out how to order food over the phone. Hyune seems genuinely surprised by how simple the process is, remarking that it's a lot easier than she thought. Yumin agrees, commenting that while the delivery fee can be a hassle, the convenience it offers is unbeatable. Hyune, however, jokingly claims that the delivery fee would be waived if she ordered a grad student to bring it to her. They both laugh, but then Hyun's tone shifts as she asks if Yumin knows a student named Changwook. Yumin pauses for a moment before answering that Changwook is a returning contemporary of hers. She asks why Hyun is interested in him, but Hyun brushes it off quickly, claiming she's just a little curious. As Yumin presses, Hyun changes the subject, stating they should focus on getting back to work. However, Yumin can't shake the feeling that there's more to Hyun's sudden interest in Changwook. She wonders if it's more than just casual curiosity. At the back of her mind, she also finds herself wondering whether she should reach out to Changwook herself.